welcome everyone. I have know all of you in some capacity, so I'm excited that you're here to learn with me today to get started with ChatGPT. So if for the recording, for people who don't know me, my name is Meagan Pollock. My company is called Engineered Organizations, and I help people do work that creates better environments for people to not only thrive, but to create opportunities and systems for the organizational outcomes to be successful as well. And I am excited to bring this content. This is new, a little bit very much outside the scope of what I normally teach. But what you can expect out of our time today is by the end of the session, my goal is that you will be able to confidently use ChatGPT as a tool, because that's what it is, to enhance your productivity, your creativity, and everyday tasks. And I emailed this to you earlier today, but I always like to be really clear about what this is and what this isn't to kind of help meet our expectations as we go along. But what the session is going to be, it's going to be hands-on. It is absolutely going to be beginner friendly. And if I am not being as beginner friendly as you would like me to be, you are 100% welcome to catch my attention, stop me, and ask me more questions so that I can make it as accessible as possible. And so this is gonna be an introduction to generative AI. I'll tell you what that means as a difference from AI in general. But we are gonna focus our time on using ChatGPT. So what this session isn't going to be, it isn't going to be a deep dive into the history or the future of AI. That's another lesson in and of itself. We're not going to explore or debate the ethics policy or ongoing debates around artificial intelligence. And it's certainly, my goal is not for this to be overwhelming or overly technical. So my goal is to keep it real and relevant. And so who this session is for, it's you. It's for curious people who want to explore how generative AI can make your work and life easier, and no technical background is required. So what I hope that you walk away with is, again, that clear understanding of how Gen AI tools work. Gen AI means generative AI, and I'll tell you what that means in a second. The confidence to start using ChatGPT, and inspiration for how it can save you time, spark creativity, and make your tasks easier. And so, again, as I suggested, this is going to be hands-on and interactive. We have a small group, so I want you to ask questions, and unmute your mic and share as well. So our agenda today is this. I've got an introductory prompt to kind of get us warmed up, thinking about how ChatGPT might help us. I'm going to talk to you about how ChatGPT works. I'm going to share some real world examples, and then we're going to spend some time doing real world coaching. That means you can bring ideas for maybe something that ChatGPT can help you with, and we're going to do it together and walk through those prompting strategies to make it as effective as possible for you. So if you haven't already, however your desktop setup is, or whatever your setup is you can either open chatgpt.com in a browser, or you can open it on a browser on your phone, or you can download the ChatGPT app. I want you to have that accessible throughout because I want you to play with it as we go along, okay? So my first question to all of you is this. What is a task that you've done recently, or maybe it's putting off, that you wonder if ChatGPT could help you with? So you can use the Slido poll, but we've also got a small group, so you're welcome to just unmute and share. So what's something that you've done or that you've been putting off that you wonder if generative AI or ChatGPT could help you with? What's something what you're thinking about?
Oh no,
Nancy.
what does Slido.com? I don't know what that means.
That's okay. It's just a way for us to collect information. You don't need to use Slido. You can just unmute and share, or you can use the chat. So somebody's added to the Slido. How you use it is like if you'd have a smartphone, open up your camera, hover over the QR code, and it'll open that browser for you. And it just allows us to have some feedback as we are going along. And it's good for the recording too. So whatever people are sharing is on the main screen. Yeah, so somebody said writing your bio. I love using ChatGPT. Christy, is that what you added? Oh no, I thought you raised
Uh,
your hand. I love
No.
using it for writing bios because for different audiences, you might need different emphasizing things. And ChatGPT not only simplify it and fine tune it for that audience, but when you start to use ChatGPT over a duration of time, it gets to know you. And as the ChatGPT gets to know you, it can help write things that you're not necessarily thinking about. And so that's one of the really valuable things in building a sort of co-working partnership with a ChatGPT account is that it builds that historical knowledge of you and can help you customize those things. I added they'd like to learn ways to help assess students learning faster. Yes, faster. Tracy, what are you thinking about?
So my question is, I use Copilot,
Mhm.
and I just recently heard that there's parts of your, like, the getting to know you part, um, you can actually create, um, how's what you have Chat GPT working on for you can actually be in the public domain, and there's a way to make it private where it doesn't have to be,
Mhm.
because my cousin was saying that she doesn't necessarily want her prompts to be public knowledge. That She wants some of her research work, because it's she was saying it's research that you request chat to do, that it can then become part of a broader uh, domain, and then that can maybe make you susceptible to other people having the same sorts of um, responses. I don't know if you, so my question is, what do you know about that? And is
Yeah,
there a
so
way
these
to,
are reasonable concerns, and I'm not.
sorry, I lost you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, yes.
And I'm not a pro on create an account. You have the option to select whether or not your interactions with ChatGTP then train the model. So I have mine set to not, right? So that means that my aren't feeding back into that model. So I imagine that for privacy reasons, I'm fairly certain that Copilot does as well, but I can't be for sure. So yeah, if you're using it for any kind of uh, reasons in which you don't want that information to then train back the model, yeah, you can make that selection. It's a great question, Tracy. So Nancy, I know she added this because we talked about it this week. She's working on creating an abstract for a presentation for the Texas Master Naturalist Conference. And so she had emailed me and asked, how if I could help her write it. And I was like, well, I suggest that we use ChatGPT, right? And so we might get to do that today together as an example, because especially some content about it. And so you can upload that to ChatGPT and say, hey, here are my slides. Here's kind of what I want to do. Here's the audience. Craft a abstract and a title for this presentation. And you can fine tune it saying things like, I want it to be whimsical and fun, or I want it to be serious and academic. So you can have it change the tone. So these are all things that you can try and use. Any other ideas or things that you're curious about using it? Anything that's coming to mind?
So I am starting a business, and so I need ideas of marketing, um, ways to, well, I did use it for ideas about logos and things like that. So I have used it for that, and names for my company. So I've got that all settled. And you know what? It didn't want the things it told me did not I mean, I didn't use what it said, but it just, like you said, gave me so many more. It's like having a brainstorm session, and sparked my ideas and what I really wanted and what I didn't want. That was so helpful. So, but marketing ideas, ugh, not my thing, but um, I will
And they can
probably
offer
use it for that.
those. Yeah. So my goal today is to share lots of examples as we go throughout. And so speaking about naming a business, one of the projects I'm working on now, so I'm on the board of an organization called High Tech High Heels. It's been named that for 25 years, and the name hasn't aged well. And we are doing a rename of the organization. And so the participants of this organization are all mostly women in engineering or women in kind of STEM fields, and there's a lot of opinions in this group, and so one of the things that we have certainly done in the is we used the chat GPT and said, here is the vision, the mission of the organization. Help us come up with some ideas. It helped us come up with some ideas. And then we tested those. And then we decided to step back in to do a co-created kind of solution. So I did a survey that sent out to all of the people who are involved with High Tech High Heels. And then I used that data and I analyzed that data to help us come up with a new name. And so, one, you can use ChatGPT to analyze survey data, and I have a video that I can share with you after that walks you through how to do that. But then, once we had all of the input from our stakeholders, I was able to say, based on all of this input, based on the things that we agree we don't want our name to be, the things that we do want our name to be, create a report of potential names. And because of the evolution of ChatGPT, now it can have live, it can read the web. Previous version was static, right? Like it was whatever had trained the language model as it was, so it wasn't able to actively pull from the web, but now it can. And so we were able to say, we want you to scan the internet and make sure that you're not suggesting things that are already somebody's name. And so, again, really valuable tool for coming up with ideas and incorporating the ideas of lots of people into that. So, great ideas. Now, I want to take a step back and teach you all a little bit about how ChatGPT actually works. So we'll call this sort of the look behind the curtain, referencing our little Wizard of Oz here. So let's first talk about what is artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence isn't new. Coined in 1856 at the Dartmouth Conference, which is really considered the birth of AI as an academic discipline. And so artificial intelligence, it is the overarching field that focuses on designing machines that mimic human thinking and behavior, such as learning, analyzing, and decision making. And it's really the umbrella term for all intelligent systems. And so the next level, so some examples of artificial intelligence that we've been using for a long time that you may not know that are artificial intelligence are things like spam filters or recommendation systems. So spam filters on our email, like so that's the very earliest form of early artificial intelligence that we all use on a regular basis. So the next is machine learning, and this is a subset of AI, and it uses data and algorithms to allow systems to improve over time through experience, often used for specific tasks like classification or prediction. Machine learning has been used very much in fraud detection. So I'm sure that you have some kind of banking card, and you've probably experienced how fraud detection now is much better than it was 20 years ago. I remember 20, I must have been 20 or 21 years old, so like 20 years ago. And it was a very early uses of fraud detection. And I was living in Tucson, Arizona at the time, and I was driving back to where my parents live in Orange, Texas. And I had a bad habit first. Well, I only had one bank card, but because I was driving across the country, it flagged my bank card as being stolen. And then I couldn't get gas. So I was literally stuck in the mountains of West Texas. I couldn't get a hotel. And so I had to sleep on the side of the road. Now, that wasn't actually that uncommon for me at that time of my life. But yeah, now these things don't happen. We have other ways of sort of checking. We can call, and the bank was closed back then. So you couldn't even call and sort of check in. Now there's so many systems of text one or zero that allows us to integrate with those systems. So much has improved over the last couple of decades. So the next form of AI is deep learning. And deep learning is a type of machine learning that uses neural networks with many layers to learn from large amounts of data, and it begins to make patterns from those data. So this is where we start to see image recognition, the speech to text features, and language translation. So patterns from lots of data. Now, why AI has sort of blown up in our faces is because of the release of ChatGPT that came out in 2022 as a generative AI tool. And so now we can't seem to turn a corner without hearing about it. But again, AI has been around. We just didn't realize a lot of times that we were interacting with AI. And so generative AI, this is a type of deep learning that uses that same training data architecture to create new content. So it's generative, right? It's creating new content like text, images, or code based on what it's learned. So generative AI, like ChatGPT or Copilot or Claude or any number of different examples that are coming out, they're all creating new content. You put something in and it creates something else. And so, again, this started to gain mainstream attention in 2022, but this generative AI has been building for years. And so, if you're interested in like why did it become such a big thing? It's because the technology had to catch up to make it possible. So we had to have, in order for us to have generative AI, it requires a tremendous amount of data that has to be processed. So we had to have the literal hardware infrastructure to be able to process that data simultaneously. And the company NVIDIA, they created the graphics processing units, the GPUs. They were actually used for gaming systems initially, but because it can process data in a parallel kind of way, it allowed for this to happen. So again, I promise not too technical, so I'm not going to go into that. But again, all of this is because engineering continues to create amazing solutions that allow us to process data. And so, again, sort of how this happens is because there are large language models. You'll hear me maybe say LLMs, because what's behind the curtain of any kind of generative AI tool is this data set. It's called a large language model that has been trained to know how to respond to patterns. So they're trained on data like from books, from the entire internet, from articles and more. They learn these patterns and relationships between words so that they can predict and generate useful responses. And what's from a environmental kind of perspective, because I've got some environmental friends here on the call with us. Training an LLM takes a massive amount of computational power, really specialized hardware, and access to really, really vast, high quality data sets. And it can take weeks and even months and millions of dollars, depending on the model size and complexity, to train this. And it has, in order to like have all of these massive servers, it takes a lot of water to actually cool it, right? And so I've heard some data suggest that with every prompt that you put in, it's like pouring out a bottle of water, right? So there's something to think about there and how we use this and how we begin to think about the tap on our natural resources. But something to think about too is that these models, like ChatGPT, they're trained on these really big data sets, but they don't store the data itself like a memory bank. What it does instead is it stores patterns and relationships between words and what's called a neural network. And the image there is kind of an example of what a neural network would look like. And then this network is hosted on really powerful servers with massive computational infrastructure. And so, again, all behind the curtain of this are big, big machines that are holding these neural networks. So that's how the large language model works, and it's been trained over time to be able to function and get us the results that we want. So the next part that we need to understand is prompting. So when you open up ChatGPT, it looks kind of like this, not with the orange buckets here, but it looks like this. That's what can I help with? And then this is where you prompt, or you ask, or you inquire, or you're sort of inputting something. So whatever your input is, that's what the prompt is. It's what you type in. It's a question, it's your instruction, or your request. And then what happens behind the scene is ChatGPT isn't actually reading what you wrote. It's taking what you typed and it's translating it into what's called tokens. So from what I understand, like say that you type in there, ChatGPT is amazing. That becomes 5 tokens. Chat, G, PT is amazing. That's from what I understand. But from other things that I've read said that it actually doesn't process words, some words like is, it might or the, like it dumps those words because every token is using data. And again, it's trying to find those patterns. So again, it's taking what you insert, it's going to turn it into tokens. It's going to create a prediction based on those patterns that it knows and understands, and then it's going to create the new content, which is its response back to you. Now, from a user standpoint, you just want to talk to ChatGPT like it's your friend. You could type out like it's you. You don't need to worry about the tokens, but I want you to understand that that's what's happening on the back end. And so these tokens are like how the large language model it measures and limits interactions. Now, with ChatGPT, I think on some free accounts, you're limited to certain number of tokens. I have a paid account, which is like the best investment I think I've ever made. Um, and so it doesn't limit that many tokens for me. But again, there are limitations on the model and how it can process. Another thing to think about, and the next thing we're going to talk about is starting to think about how we prompt. But because it's processing tokens, it's better for your prompting. You don't want to insert like 30,000 instructions because it can't process that much instruction. Just like you and I, we are better at processing tasks in smaller buckets, right? Do this. Okay, great. Now do this. Great. Now do this. So Denise, for example, I assumed this helping your students was your input. So if you were going to build a GPT to help you grade and assess your students' learning, you could train your GPT on your rubric. And then you can train the GPT on how to provide feedback. Then you can upload each student's. I have not been successful yet at uploading massive amounts of data to give individualized feedback. But then once you have that trained, you can say, okay, grade Nancy's homework based on the rubric and provide feedback based on how I trained you to provide feedback. Okay, great. Here's my printout. I scan it and say, okay, that looks pretty good. I spot check it, make sure it's not, wacky. And then you've got your assessment for students or whatever, right? But you can train it in those different kinds of ways to get the kind of feedback that you want. Okay, any questions on the tech stuff before we start giving some examples? Christy?
Yeah. So are you saying that when you're training the rubric, I think you called it, then what you put in and you ask, you're putting in less tokens? You're using less tokens after you've already have your kind of matrix set out
Yeah,
first? Oh,
because
okay.
you won't have to use as many words. So
Yeah.
let me go
Okay.
over to like show you, for example, my chat GPT. Um, Actually, one of the case studies I have here shows how I trained it to be consistent in a template. It's not a grading example, but I'll show you some use cases here. Um, and let me, sorry to make you seasick here. So for example, in the Pro account, you can create project folders. So like Magic Mirror, for example, is the book that I just published. And so once it builds a memory, so it has my book in its memory. And so I can then come and ask it, like, help me create a marketing strategy for my book. It
Oh,
already has saved in its memory who my potential target readers are, right? So I don't have to type all of that in and burn those tokens all the time. It's using that memory to do that. Um, for Denise's example for training students, it's making me think about how so I did this project for Jobs for the Future. Give me a second to find it. Feedback generator. So this, what I'm going to show you here, this is advanced. So this isn't an advanced solution, but you are capable of it. It's just, it's not something you can just do in a second, right?
yeah.
So that's not the one I wanted. Um, so one of my clients, they had this PDF of an approach that they wanted to advise institutions for incorporate as who are building apprentice-based programs for how to incorporate diversity, equity, and inclusion accessibility. And one of the things that they wanted to be able to do is to be able to provide feedback, but there was a issue of scale, right? There are only so many people, so many ways that, and meetings that they could provide feedback. But they had this research paper that they had written on like how to create to strengthen their apprentice programs with diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so what I then did is I used the developer tools on the back end of OpenAI, and I actually trained the language model on their framework, which in Denise's case might be your rubric. And and so instead of a user having to use AI, you could actually make this like a survey. So for example, this AI feedback generator, the user just and oops, let's move to a new address. Okay, that's good to know. The user, all they see is this form, and it's gonna ask them some questions. And so say that your test or Christy, your clients, right? You're doing an intake question. And this question is, does your program have clear goals to include? And so whatever the person types, it's being fed into the back of a of a trained GPT, and then it processes that data and it sends them an email with feedback on how to improve to better align with that framework. So
Wow.
so you
So
can
you're
train
like
things.
training it like you're putting in your nutrition training in steps for them to do. They're answering, okay, well, I've already done this, but this is my goal. And then it says, okay, well, uh, I'm making an inference, the AI is saying, I'm making a prediction that this is what you do need to do next.
Yes, it will do that. And it can be based on what you think and your science and your ways of knowing and doing.
Yeah.
I'm working on, I will be starting this next week a project for my friends who run an organization called Rare Village. And they provide support for families who are dealing with rare disease. And so I'm going to be building an AI agentic bot. So like it acts like an agent because one of the challenges with families who are facing the impacts of rare disease on their kids is like, what do we do next? Because there's not a solution, right?
Yeah.
But my friend Gina and her colleague who run this, they have gone through it and lived it. And so I'm going to train the AI bot to be their brain, right? To dump all of that into it. And then on this website, what will pop up once I finish it is a bot that says, and then the people can ask questions. This is what I'm going through, and then it can give responses trained on my friends' experiences on what to do, right? So all of this is capable that you're capable of of doing. Now, again, those are a little bit more advanced kinds of solutions, but there's so much that's possible. So those are a couple of use cases. I want to share some more that maybe aren't so advanced. Some other ways that I have used ChatGPT is one, bringing my book to life, Magic Mirror, right? So if you haven't read it, please read it. It's available on audiobook and ebook and print. Um, but it was a really tremendous writing partner for me because of the goal of the book as a narrative, teaching some really complex things, and I wanted to make sure I was using accessible language. So one of the sort of implications of, being an academic is you sometimes forget the sort of entry level language. And so I would write something and then I would put it in ChatGPT and say, is this accessible to a layperson? And it would be like, no. And it would help me rewrite it in a way that is more accessible. So it's been a great partner for conceptualizing all kinds of things. So over the last few months, I've been releasing really regular little videos about concepts in the book. And I use ChatGPT to help me write those. So again, I had uploaded the whole book and I said, write me like 45 to 60-second clips that are about some key topics in the book and that says, that has like a front and a back, and again my case study on another project. So again, it can do so many things for you, like, but for me to have stopped and written 50 little video scripts would have taken me a week, right? Instead it took me a couple of hours. And
Wow.
again, it's pulling from my own content to create these kinds of things.
So Megan,
Yeah.
can I how, you uploaded your book. How do you know other people aren't going to steal it?
Because I've set my system to not be public. It's not training the language models.
Okay.
You can do that. I don't want to, right? Um, so another example is, again, most of you know me, but I was a foster parent last year for about 6 months. I felt like I was in a co-parenting relationship with ChatGPT. There was a lot that was like outside like the realm of what I understood and what I could figure out. And I needed tools on like how to parent and like how to discipline. And it was an amazing partner in that. And so I would input like, wow, this just happened. I'm not really sure how I'm supposed to react to a kid who's had a life of trauma. And it knows about trauma-informed approaches. And so it could tell me like, these are the best ways for you to approach this. It helped me and more fun kinds of things when I was just getting to know her before she was placed with me. We had like a day in Galveston. And Galveston's really a fun and special place to me. And so I asked ChatGPT, I said, I want to take her to these 5 places, but I want you to help me design a fun scavenger hunt around these 5 places. And I want the clues to be like signaling our future life together, because the goal was for me to adopt her, right? And and I said, and I want you to create a schedule. We're going to get there about noon and we need to leave by 5. Look at the times that the places are open, create a schedule, write the scripts. And again, I'm doing this all piece by piece. I'm not doing this in one big giant prompt. And it came up with a schedule. It came up with the most amazing little prompts, and we had a really, really fun day. Um, I also used it to help create some like journaling prompts for her, and to help her navigate some of the challenges she was going through. You can also use it for mealtime. So there were a few weeks where my brain was just sort of at capacity for things, and I thought, you know what? Let's see if ChatGPT can plan a week of meals. So I ask it, plan a week of meals for me that's like low cholesterol, good for pre-diabetic people, no fish, and whatever, right? And so it planned a meal for me, and then it would give me something. I'd be like, oh no, I don't like that. It had me eating cottage cheese. I was like, no, I don't know. That's not for me, right? So like change it up, and it created a meal plan, and I could just put it on the fridge. And then I said, now turn that meal plan into a shopping list for me. And it created a shopping list, and it will create it in a Word document for you. You download it, take it to the grocery store, and bam, right? Other really useful tools is it is so useful at creating any kind of communications. So, Christy, for your challenges around marketing, it's amazing at creating social media posts, writing proposals. Nancy, like what you're doing for the Texas Master Naturalist Conference, it's something I use it a lot for as well. Um, I'm using it a lot right now in my job search, so it allows me to customize my resume. And because I've been using it for 11 months on the job market, it knows me really well. And so it knows like everything I've ever accomplished, and every sort of way of metric of saying that. And it's been incredibly powerful because I'm trying to pivot back into industry. So much of my experience over the last 15 years within the nonprofit and consulting world, it's able to translate that into the business language, words that I wouldn't call it, right? Like, but it's able to pull those keywords. So it's so useful for that as a tool. Tracy, what you thinking?
When you were talking about some of the things like for proposal writing, how do you avoid plagiarism? Or what are some, how do you know when you're probably using Chat GPT too much, overly relying on it? And then are there ways that you can check yourself for the sources? What I usually do is I just go to the Chat GPT sources and verify them by checking the original sources for things. But do you have a hack for that?
Well, I am not asking it to like write papers for me. What I'm asking it to do generally is to help manipulate content I've already written. And so I'm not worried about it plagiarizing because it's pulling from my own words and content. Say, for example, I this past week I've been on a writing practice. Um, I wanted to make sure I was not losing my ability to write crippled by
Mm-hmm.
ChatGPT. So, for example, these three blogs that came out this week, the Myers-Briggs and experiment from Bear to Beautiful and AI might be better at empathy than humans. Each of these articles are 100% my words. Like I wrote them, and then what I did is I put it into AI and I just said tidy it up for me, right? Make it but like it wasn't creating anything that was outside of my tone, because I told it, I was like, I don't want to lose my tone, I don't want to lose my style, I don't want to lose my cadence, just tidy it up for me, right? And it made some changes. That's generally how I'm using it. And so if you're asking ChatGPT to write something for you that's outside of your expertise, that would feel unethical to me, right? Because you don't know if it's something that you can deliver or not. But you're bringing up a great question of like what's ethical, what's not. Another tool that you can use is I use Grammarly, and usually I'm using Grammarly embedded in whatever tool, like Google Docs, Word, whatever. But if you actually go to Grammarly, it has a feature where it can assess if something, I'm trying to get the language right. Um, Let me see if I can find a good example. I'll pull up this letter wrote. So here it has a check for AI text and plagiarism. Um, so this is one tool that you can use. Although in most of my experience when I've tested this, and I haven't tested this, Um, so it says this resembles AI text, um, but it's not saying it's plagiarized anything. And so one of the things that I pay attention to is there are some giveaways to things being AI text that I try to avoid. It's so funny, but ChatGPT wants to start everything with like in the vast landscape of our digital world. It wants to start everything like that. Um, and I didn't learn that pattern until using it after a while and then seeing everybody else writing in the same way. And so I try to find those patterns and be like, stop saying that. Like, I don't want anything I write to have those kinds of things. And that's sort of the fun of it. Um, but Tracy, what you're asking is really kind of pushing on the bounds of like the tool of AI. You're either okay using it or you're not. I like to, for example, in the back of Magic Mirror, I put in the acknowledgments that I use ChatGPT 4.0 to support me in some of the writing because I felt like that was my ethical choice to admit that I used this tool. I didn't admit that I used Microsoft or Google Sheets, which is also not Google Sheets, Google Doc, which is also a tool. But right now, it felt like the ethical thing to do. I don't feel the need to like every social media post that I use writing AI to be like, ChatGPT helped me write this, right? We don't,
Yeah, I guess just, I'm sorry.
go
If
ahead.
I could just clarify, first of all, you already did help me because you told me that that was a feature. There was a feature in Grammarly. I have Grammarly, but I don't use it that much, and I didn't know that they had that feature. So that was helpful. But
Good.
also, I think when you're doing like the old-fashioned research and you're saying, I need to find sources for whatever it is that I'm talking about, even if I'm not the expert, that really is irrelevant to if there's a topic that I'm talking about, I'm going to go do the research. When you do the research, you know what source you got it from. You went to this website or you went to this book or that publication, whatever, and then you know that you're supposed to cite the source.
Yeah.
If AI, it's not like you're trying to do anything unethical, but if AI pulls in a bunch of sources without really citing them, and I think that that's possible that it could do that, then you're left trying to figure out what is original, what, you know what I mean? Like that's the
Mhm.
part that
Yeah.
can get you into those muddy waters. So I was just wondering if there's a hack, but whenever AI cites a source, I try to, use those sources and go to those pages. And then
Yes.
if I need to cite something, I cite the original, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's
I
all.
understand what you're saying now. So I do not ask it to do things like that because if I'm doing like an actual research project, I'm not asking it to do things like that. Um, very much. But what I do often do is I go to Google Scholar and I will pull down the research papers that I want, and then I will go ask ChatGPT to read it and summarize it for me sometimes, right? And say, pull out the key points from this research article. And then that tells me if I want to read it or not, right? So that helps me save time and like I'm not going to read 1,000 articles if I only need to read 20, you know? Um
Hey,
it Go ahead.
could Tracy take what she's found, copy and paste it into Grammarly, and then click that little button that says check
Plagiar.
for AI text and plagiarism?
Yeah, she could.
Could
I
you do
think
it
what
that way?
she's getting at is like trusting its sources.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
and just like we teach students or we were taught, hopefully, to like check your sources, like it's the
Right.
same kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
You got to go to the original source, check and make sure it's true. What has been useful to me in using ChatGPT for some course development stuff is it, it did teach me some things from research articles that I hadn't come across, right? Like maybe they were sort of seminal works. Like, for example, the communication course that I wrote recently. I asked it in the beginning, like, what are some seminal works that are like beginning sort of parts of communication theory? And because some of those works are from like the 50s. And I'm not looking that far back in on Google Scholar, but it was able to pull those up. And then I went and looked them up in the original sources. So I do think it's useful for those kinds of things.
Let me ask you this. Okay, I haven't thought about this. Back in school, I had access to the amazing medical libraries.
Mhm.
Do we have access to that now? Because when you leave school, then you can't look up the latest and greatest research.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's really kind of paralyzing when you want to keep your, you want to keep up with your knowledge. Like, do we have the access to now say, send me articles about stem cell?
Unless they're open source, no.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay.
So there is some work like there's this big issue that's come out, as I understand it, with Meta, aka Facebook company. They've trained their large language model based on pirated books. So it's a website where people can post people's books that they've written or whatever illegally, and it's been trained on that. And so so that's an ethics issue, right? Denise, what's on your mind?
I just wanted to offer to her, you might want to check with your local education institutions. I teach at a community college in Northern Illinois. And if you pay taxes to the district, you have access to our library. And one of the things that you have access to through the library are scholarly articles. So all you need to do if you live in my district is to have access to our resources, and then you can go in and get access to any of the databases that our library subscribes to. And it's
Why?
all
Because
funded.
is that a state university? Is it a state
It's a community college, a 2-year community college.
a community college?
Yeah, but
Wow.
we our residents in our district pay taxes to help fund our resources, and one of the resources we provide to our community is access to our library. So we have several databases that we subscribe to. So all you have to do is connect with your community college, and then you get access to those resources, and that can include scholarly articles like the ones you're talking about. For
Nice.
free.
Thank you, Denise.
Yeah.
That's great. I'm not sure Texas is that generous.
Yeah, I
And
was gonna say probably not in Texas, but that's a nice thought. But we'll see.
because
Well,
I remember
oh,
reaching out to the library and asked, and maybe I didn't ask the right questions, but I know the answers were no, because I don't have library access either.
Yeah.
Research library access.
Yeah.
But maybe I should try again.
Yeah.
yeah, I know our library, the community library doesn't have access to stuff like that, but the community college's library does.
Yeah.
That's a great
Harris
idea.
County Community Schools. Yeah, that's great. I'm gonna ask. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so those are some examples. Let me see if I can think of any more. The point of these examples is like what could or used to take hours can now take minutes without really sacrificing the depth or clarity. And so I want to give you a little bit of a tour of ChatGPT. So again, this is my account. I have a paid account, and so it might look a little bit different. So this is what you would see if you logged in or didn't log in, but you're using the free account. So it's going to have this open field. You can search things. You can even use voice mode. But if I just go to create a new chat here, it allows you to upload different kinds of files. You can dictate to it, and you can use voice mode, but after you type something in, you're going to hit enter. I'll give another example of what makes this so useful. Last night I was pulling down the list of registrants, but because of the way I set it up, it was not ideal. So I had to pull them one by one from my website. Like Nancy registered and here's her email. Christy registered and here's her contact information. Um, and so what I was able to do is put all of those chunks of data into ChatGPT and I asked it, I said, make a spreadsheet for me based on this. And boom, cranked out a spreadsheet. And then I could easily have that. And then I was able to track, I can add now attendance and things like that. It's really good at taking data and creating simple spreadsheets. For my Texas Master Naturalist friends here, I was the host of our one of our classes last week, and I asked for the contact information, and somebody sent me a PDF, and I was like, ugh, I don't want to like have to copy and paste 20 emails from that. And I thought, aha, ChatGPT can do this for me. And so I uploaded the PDF of the information and I said, parse out the emails and make this a editable Excel table for me. Boom, done. Took 2 seconds.
That's the best feature you've said so far. For people like me, for people like me that doesn't like a lot of data and is not that organized when it comes to that. That's really a cool feature.
Yeah, and it can do so much with the data like that. Um, okay, so when you have a pro account, you have different models. So these models, back to the kind of sort of tech side of things, are the different language models. So like this older ChatGPT 4, it's leaving soon because the most common one that we're using right now is 4.0. ChatGPT 4.5 is new. So right now we're limited on how many tokens you can use to engage with that. Um, to be honest, I haven't tried this ChatGPT 4.0 with scheduled tasks yet. But the most common one that I'm using is the 4.0. And so you'll see that there. So you can again ask it anything. Um, with projects, you're able to upload files or specific instructions. So, Denise, thinking about your grading situation, you might be able to use a client project as a way to customize the kinds of feedback that you want to give without having to build that, tool that I built. So you can tailor how it provides feedback or how it responds here. Um, you could add a file of your rubric for how you want to grade something here. Same with you, Christy, and your nutrition clients. You could add your sort of nutritional guidelines. One of the things that I have found, and when I'm creating feedback for things, is AI is really good at responding with empathy. Um, and I wrote an article on that this week. It's arguably better than humans because it always knows what to say and we don't, right? um, but sometimes I have to train it to use the kind of language that I like. Like I prefer to respond in like an asset mindset, talking about the strengths rather than what you have, rather than what you don't have. I sometimes train it to be a little bit more inclusive in its language. And as this account has kind of gotten to know me, it knows to kind of respond in those ways. But you can just train it to do those things. Yeah, Christy.
So when you were talking about 4.0, it's leaving soon. They're going to do 4.5, right?
Well, the most common is 4.0 right now. 4.5 is on the pro account, you get some sampling with it, but it's limited right now. I don't think 4.0 is going anyway. The one that's going away is ChatGPT 4.
Oh, okay.
The
4.
4.0, for whatever reason why they call it that,
Uh-huh.
is the most common one.
Okay, so you're saying GPT-4 is different than GPT-4.0.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So 4
They're
is
different
leaving.
language models. So they've been trained So
Okay.
once they release the language model, like it's static. Like we've trained it to do this thing, now it's
Mhm.
released. And then they use it to sort of train the next one, and then they release that one, and then they train the next one, and then they release that one. Yeah. Okay,
Okay.
so let's go into some activities here.
Wait. So my other real question was the client project, is that on Chat GPT, or you have to do the pro thing to get the client project thing?
So these are just random folders. So you can see over here, like I have a folder of like these are projects that I'm doing for clients.
Oh,
Here's
but
my
that is your professional,
uh,
that's the one you paid for.
yeah, but you would call them whatever you want. It's like
Yeah,
creating a
okay.
file structure
Yeah.
on yours.
Okay, I'm
See,
sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
one of the things that's again a little more than what we need today is in the early days of ChatGPT, and I am an early adopter. Before you could do the customization like here, um, you would have to build custom GPTs. So
Right,
that's
right.
why I have all of these things over here because I was customizing GPTs. Um, but again, I actually rarely use these anymore because the nature of ChatGPT is evolving so much that I can embed it within those kinds of things.
So it knows more than you. So you used to think, okay, I know all this. I'm going to make my GPT. And then now you're saying that the data that you pull from in the general GPT is so large, you don't have to tell it like to be
Well,
limited to what you told it before. Is that what you're saying?
so when I started developing these GPTs over here on the left, we were on early chat GPT models, like
Right.
three something.
Okay.
And so all of these features didn't exist, like the project list, the add instructions, add project files, you couldn't do
Uh,
that. So it's
okay.
like any software, it keeps evolving.
Yeah. Okay.
And so again, I don't find myself using these hardly at all anymore because
Mhm.
they're using older versions. So because I had trained like the Marcom assistant. This one was important because when I had a communications manager, is I trained this Marcom ChatGPT to my voice. So like I uploaded all of my writing, things that I had posted, so that my employee could write things in my voice.
Wow. Okay.
Um, and then I trusted that they were good because it was trained on me, like by
Yeah.
me, by my words.
What you want
Um,
to say.
and that's what, again, the potential of ChatGPT.
Very nice. Okay.
That's a cool feature too.
Yeah.
Hey, is there any way you can tell us what the cost, like what which features are free and then which features we would end up having, like from what you're showing us, what would end up costing us a little extra?
I think, again, I'm not earning anything by this reference, right? I think it's like 20 bucks a month for a paid account. But for me, it's like having another employee. And for 20 bucks a month, that's a pretty good investment. um, for the amount of work and time that it saves me, I just can't imagine letting it go. I actually pay for a team, for example, I pay for a team account um, because I previously had a team, but in order for me to downgrade to like a single person, I would lose all of my history. And I was like, cool, I'm not doing that. And so I just gave the extra seat to a friend of mine who needed it. But like, so I'm actually paying twice what I should be, but it's just that worth it to me and the value that it provides to me professionally. Um, so
Thank
so
you for
we're
that. Real quick, I find that to be I'm using Copilot, like I said, and I think it's invaluable to me too. A lot of um, programs are now building chat GPT or AI technology within them. Do you think that it's still worth it to get it separately versus Like
For
Canva,
sure.
just using that as an example. Canva is now using AI, and a lot of other ones are using AI.
So to me, my ChatGPT count is like my personal assistant. But if you use the AI in every other software, it's like having somebody in each of those corners, but they don't know everything that's going on.
Good point.
And so for me, like it's like having a personal assistant, a virtual assistant that knows everything about me. um and has that history. Whereas if you use it in each of the different components, it's not going to have, it's a different tool, right? It doesn't mean I'm not interested in the AI features in the different places, but for me right now, like, because I tried back when Gemini with Google Workplace came out, I paid the $5 a month for it, but like it the beginning, it added no value to me. So I canceled it because I'm like, it doesn't add any value. Now they're integrating AI at no cost, and it is adding some value because again, they're training it so fast to have more value added features. But I think it would be a lot for me to give up this ChatGPT um, personal assistant um, kind of mindset. So here's some prompting tips. First is that you want to treat it like you would an assistant and how you give advice and not advice, how you give requests for things. Think of it like a memory bank of all of the sort of things about you that you know and that you do and that you've worked on. Because it is that. When you're prompting, you want to be really specific. So if you give it a vague prompt, it's going to give you a vague answer. And so the clearer that your instructions are, the better the output. And so instead of saying like, help me write an email, say, help me write a professional follow-up email to a client who hasn't responded in 2 weeks, right? So I actually use it for writing emails a lot, especially when I'm feeling a little saucy. And I'm like, I don't trust my capacity to respond in a nice way. Please write this. It's also a little cathartic to type in ChatGPT, like, this is what I want to say. Now write it nicely. So you get out off your chest what you feel like you need to say, and it will write it.
Also, it makes you, even thinking about what you're going to put in the prompt, makes you think about what you really want.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Another set of advice that I've heard, but I actually don't use this very often, is to give it context, like it's a new but specific kind of team member. So say like you are a career coach helping someone apply for a tech job, write a compelling cover letter. So helping it know like you're a marketing manager. Um, in earlier models of ChatGPT, I did do that. As it's evolved for me, I actually don't use that very often. Now setting the tone or the role is something I use a lot. So it will create content and I'll be like, oh, that's a little stiff for me. I want it more whimsical. And it will rewrite it or like, wow, that's way too whimsical. Reel it in. And it will adjust the tone. Um, Another key thing to get really good at prompting and getting the outcomes that you want from more complex things is to make sure that you're breaking down big tasks. So if you upload, so say for example, in the last week or week before last when I released the how to analyze survey data, instead of just dumping the whole spreadsheet of data into it, I input it question by question and said analyze the responses to this question. Now this one, now this one, now this one. Now look across all of them and find the common themes. So you're helping it to do the things one by one, and you're going to get better responses. You can tell it how you want it to format it, and it can also create downloadable files. So like when uh, I don't want to show everybody's addresses on here, but like where did I ChatGPT? Of course, I used it to help plan for this as well. But like I input I input some information and I said, I want you to create a table for me. And it'll create a table. I could ask it to create a PDF or a Excel that I can download. It will give me that link and I can download those files. Um, it can format it in whatever way that you want. So like if you want it to format and say, hey, I can't use HTML, so use emojis as the bullets, it will format it for you. So you just have to ask. Another tool, these last two that I use, well, iterate and refine, is constantly following up and asking it to refine kind of what I'm asking. But these last two, use examples and tell it what you do not want is also really important. So if there's something I can provide, like here's an example of something I've written like this before, I want it to mirror this. Or when I tell it, like, please don't ever start a sentence with from the vast digital landscape. Uh, you can tell it those things. Hey, Tracy, what's on your mind?
So in the context of what I'm going to be doing in the future, I currently am a government employee, but right now we cannot use chat GPT or AI across the board in government. There's a lot of things they're putting in place so we can integrate it to some extent. But the biggest concern is PII, private information that would be in violation of the Privacy Act. And if I were to do a subcontract with a government agency or any kind of like, even academia, any agency that is responsible for the keeping people's private information private, how do you integrate this if you're like a consultant doing work for an agency? Have you encountered that yet?
Well, as a consultant, they have no control over what I do unless it's been written into my contract that I can't use a tool for their work. Now, if managing client data, that is important, right? So if they say like don't analyze this with ChatGPT or any AI feature, then I suppose you'd have to honor that. That's certainly not something I've run into. Um,
Does ChatGPT have a safeguard? Like, in some cases, certain systems have these um I guess I don't know what you call them. Safeguards is the best thing I could think of. Do you know if it has any of those things where you can, as an added feature, you can use?
I can't speak super intelligently about that.
Okay.
To be quite honest, I don't have a lot of trust that many data systems are as secure as we think that they are. Um,
Okay. Thank you. I was just
yeah, I think that would be worth a little bit more research for your specific application. Um, and again, one of the responsible, use concerns that you want to kind of keep in mind.
But if you're paying $20 a month
Or something, I don't know what it really is.
or whatever it is, if you're paying that, it's all kept private in your computer, in your system. Isn't that correct?
Well, yes, in theory, but like I just don't think that anything's ever that safe.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Yeah.
Um, I mean, even that's me. That's my own skepticism, right? Like I
I
can't speak to the efficacy of the security systems of Google or Dropbox or
right.
wherever we store our data. Um, but I feel like if we've learned anything in time, like nothing's really that secure. Our banks get hacked,
Right.
things get
Okay. Yeah.
stolen.
So don't necessarily trust that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I
Yeah.
mean, I don't think I would ever upload a spreadsheet, for example, with social security numbers or things like that. Like, I'm definitely never putting in there anything that's going to compromise me.
That reminds me, one time I was in a government website and I was diving deep into something. I wasn't trying to get anything illegal or anything, but I ended up in with seeing a spreadsheet and it had a lot of data on it. Obviously, they put it in the wrong file or something, and I just closed it up. I was thinking, oh my goodness, they're going to come after me and say, do you have that data? You know,
Yeah.
it was really crazy. But yeah, obviously mistakes are made. So, okay, thank you.
So we're going to move into coaching right now. And Nancy and I spoke earlier this week. And so we're going to start with hers. If somebody else has an example, prepare to bring it forward. So as we mentioned, Nancy's going to be presenting at a Texas Master Naturalist conference this fall. And she has this presentation that she sent me that she's given before. She wrote this abstract already. And so I'm going to provide a little bit of context here. So below is an abstract that my colleague wrote for a conference session proposal. The audience, I'm going to let it know who the audience is, will be Texas Master Naturalists. Nancy, tell me, what is your goal and why you want to give this talk? You're muted.
I want to give an example that might inspire other people to convert their property from agriculture to wildlife management. Or actually, I guess even if you didn't have agriculture land, just how you can use Aldo Leopold's tools to for sustainability and biodiversity. I'm changing my thoughts here. Sorry.
It's okay. I'm going to add it all in.
Okay.
Yes, please, even for people that have yards in cities.
Yeah.
I think that's important. Yeah.
But there is an acreage limitation, isn't there?
If it's agriculture, but I think Aldo Leopold's 5 tools could still be used, like Christy was saying, in a regular person's yard, or even on your front porch or balcony of an apartment. You can still do diverse pots of plants, and it would still help native plants,
Okay, so it's not for the certification, but okay.
Well, it would be for that, but other people could learn from it too. I'm
Okay.
thinking, I don't know, but
Can
mine's specific for the yeah, for the appraisal district's designation.
so I'm asking it to write a compelling title that will draw people in and an interesting abstract.
And you
All right.
already uploaded the presentation,
I
right?
uploaded the presentation. I dropped in there what you had already written, and I typed in these things here. So let's see what it comes up with. So it's reading, it read the PowerPoint says, based on your colleague's intent and the rich, engaging content of the abstract and presentation, here's a compelling session title and a revised dynamic abstract that centers storytelling, credibility, and inspiration. So here's 5 title options for you. From sheep to songbirds, one woman's bold shift from ag to wildlife management.
All right.
Wild at Heart, how one landowner took on the appraisal district and won for wildlife. Oh, I love that one.
Oh,
Love that one. All right, I'm going to drop that
right.
one in a chat for you, and I can email these to you later.
Okay.
So now let's look.
Raider to
Revise abstract.
Guardian.
When Nancy joined TMN, she never imagined how profoundly it would transform her relationship with her 10-acre property. Originally a small sheep farm, in this candid practical session. Whether you're stewarding a backyard, a pasture, or a piney woods retreat, you'll walk away empowered to rethink what's possible for privately owned land and inspired to act. See? So it used your same sort of language, but it created a little
What?
bit more storytelling. So yeah, so here's one example.
Oh, that's so nice.
Awesome.
Oh,
I'll
thank
email this
you.
to you afterwards. Okay,
Yeah. Oh, that's
let's do another
exciting.
example. Who else has another example? Christy.
Is there a way to copy and paste?
Yeah, so you can either do this. So here's a copy button here, but that'll copy all of it. So I'll just
So
put
I can
that
put it
in.
on this screen right here with you?
Oh, you can copy something into the chat.
Oh, okay. Let me try that.
Or if you want to share screen and navigate it on your own screen, you're welcome to do that too.
Oh yeah, I could share my own screen. Let me find it. This
I do have a
might.
hard stop at 1:30 and I want to try to get to everybody, get an
Yeah,
example.
so if somebody else has something, go ahead. I'm gonna try to find my
Tracy, do you have an example you want us to try?
Um, I'll just randomly come up with something. I'm working on workplace respect and civility. We want to do a training module on it, and I haven't thought about how I want to phrase it. So you can give me the prompts to tell you so we can get it in there.
Okay, so I'm writing here, my colleague
Yeah.
wants to
Presenting. Oh, go ahead.
build a
Module, say training module.
on workplace respect and civility.
Correct.
Um, do you want to ask it to write a draft for you? Do you want to ask it for
Learning objectives. I want to ask it to give me at least 4 to 5 learning objectives for the course.
Okay, let's see what it's got. Am I not sharing screen?
It's
No,
not on here
not
right
sharing.
now.
Oh my
Because
gosh. So I did all of
Christy
that and
was
you
about
couldn't
to
see it.
share. That's why.
I
You
was
were sharing and then you stopped because Christy was going to share.
okay, but you saw everything I did for
I
Nancy,
saw
right?
everything, yeah, everything else.
Okay, gosh. Okay, so here are 4 thoughtfully crafted learning objectives. And here's something that might be based on how I've trained my version of AI, and it might not be. But something I always ask ChatGPT is to start with why. I love Simon Sinek's book, Start with Why.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so that might be why it's starting with this, why it's including this, why it matters, because I always ask, start with why.
I
um,
like it.
so I can copy these. So let's ask another question, but like, what might be some bottlenecks and challenges in the learning module? Let's spell. So some bottlenecks might be personal bias and blind spots, differing definitions of respect, fear of
Yep, it's good.
speaking up, perceived double standards or unfair enforcement, time constraints, emotional discomfort. Um, so yeah, you could even ask it to give me a suggested outline. Is this a asynchronous at your own pace or in person?
It'll probably be virtual, but it will be live instruction. I mean, it'll
Okay.
be not asynchronous, let's put it that way.
Okay. Give me a suggested outline for a 1-hour virtual live instruction session. All right. So it breaks down the agenda. Introductions, definitions, scenario-based instruction. One of the things I love ChatGPT for is writing scenarios. Because so usually how it starts is I will have written one, and then I'll come back and say, I need you to customize this for a different audience. So maybe I wrote the initial scenarios for an education audience, but my next audience is a tech firm. And I will say, I'm still teaching the same concepts, but rewrite the scenario.
Love it.
And so
It's
I can say, write a scenario for a government employee office, and then it will do that. Another key thing here that I haven't mentioned is that ChatGPT has a tool called Canvas, which is different than Canva. And so what I'm going to do here, so it's written this here, and I'm going to say, turn this into a canvas. When it turns it into a canvas, it means that I can edit it. So now this is like a Word document. And so I can come in this and I can add, so I can change this name to Tracy. I can come here and say, I can I can select this and say, change this or explain it. And then it will respond to that.
How did you change it into a canvas?
I asked it to.
You asked it to, okay.
I said, turn this into a canvas.
So it gave you all the information and then it says, can I help you with anything else? And you said, turn this into a canvas. Is that what you did?
Yeah, a lot of times I will say that in my prompt of like, write this and put it into a canvas, so it reduces the number of prompts.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead.
I want to let someone else get a turn, but can this be preserved and emailed to me or something?
I will email it to you this afternoon.
Okay, thank you.
I'll be happy to. Okay, Denise or Christy, what's your example?
Oh, my stuff, I put my little all there in chat over there in the chat box. You can copy and paste that in there if you have time. If not, that's fine.
Okay, so what is it that you want?
This is my 1 minute talk, by like my elevator speech to tell people what am I doing.
Elevator speech.
Okay, that's good. And this is what you use ChatGPT to write, or how do you want ChatGPT to help you?
I wrote it. Can it make it more concise? Of course, my 1 minute, no way, Jose. It's 2 minutes when I say it, but it's supposed to inspire hope, inspire curiosity, inspire trust, and inspire action. So I guess I could maybe say it more concisely.
Okay, Christy needs to take the following text she's written and convert it into an elevator pitch.
Yeah.
She wants it to inspire hope, curiosity, trust, and action. I hit enter.
If she would have put the time in there, does ChatGPT enable you to kind of limit certain things to a certain time?
Yeah, so I put 60-second and 1 minute in here. Now I have found that usually their 60-second version is still too long. Because I use it a lot to write like 60-second or less video scripts.
Okay.
And so I found that I need to ask it to write 45-second.
Got it.
But that's just in my experience. So far, it could be better tomorrow, right? Who knows? So here it is. Now, you could even say, I want it to be more fun and whimsical. I use that word a lot with it because I don't know why.
Yeah, you want it to be like personable, right?
Yeah. So now this version is a little bit different. So I was handed a diagnosis and a bag of meds. It didn't always help and sometimes made things worse. So I grabbed my magnifying glass, dove into the world of functional medicine, and started uncovering the real roots of my symptoms. Plot twist:
That's fun.
stress and lifestyle were key players.
Love it.
I like to be nice to my chat GPT and say like, that's awesome. Except I can't type today. Awesome. Awesome. Geez, awesome. How about an even shorter version?
Yeah, that's pretty short. Wow.
You can see why Hollywood was protesting AI because they
Yeah,
this can
definitely.
really replace some people's jobs with writing, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So here's when you don't have a 60-second elevator and you got a 5-second one,
Yeah.
or a 15-second one. So
Yeah.
I'll send all of this to you afterwards. Okay, Denise, it's your turn.
I don't have anything specific.
Okay.
But I do have a question I think you could help me with.
All
Let's
right.
say that I'm planning a lesson for my class, and typically I'll have like a PowerPoint slides. I might have some, maybe like a video that I want students to watch before they come to class, or, you know, maybe I have like an assignment, something that I want them to do afterwards. And I would like to, you know, so what I'm saying is I have like maybe audio visual content, a PowerPoint presentation, all these different mediums, and I wanted to like summarize it for me, or something like that. Would I
Yes.
just like what upload like a link to the YouTube video? I don't know. How do I craft the prompt for it to be able to give me something that would, yeah, I guess what I'm saying is a lot of times I have a lot of information available, but it's in different formats and different locations. So how
Yeah.
can I say I want to take all of this information, you know, like maybe I wanted, you know, after class, I wanted to do like a exit ticket for my students.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So out of all of this, what are like 3 questions I could ask for my
It could
students?
absolutely do that. So I would do them one at a time. So I'd upload the slides and say, summarize these slides. I'd upload the video and say, summarize the video. I'd upload the assignment and say, okay, now given these things, write a 3-question exit ticket survey based on this. And
Okay.
period. Next, I would say, now write a 1-page summary sheet that the students can use as a review tool.
Right.
You can ask it to do, you could ask it to write a test for you, a survey. It could ask you to say, ask it like, what's not clear? Like, I need them to know these things. Is there something that I'm not hitting on,
Right.
that I want to hit on? So you could ask it those things as well.
Okay.
Yeah, it will do.
Because, and then just one thing, just a real quick question, because I know you got to go. So when you start a new chat, it basically remembers everything that you've talked about in that one chat. So, you know, like if I download all of these different documents or upload all of these different documents for it, it remembers that the slides were like a before, and if I need to reference it again, I don't have to upload them again, right? All within one chat. Is that how that
Yeah,
works?
so one of the benefits of the new layout with the projects is it will remember everything within a project.
Okay.
Before projects existed, I would have some of the, so like this one right here, this 1111 plus plus, that means it's 1111's workshop plus a bunch of others. Because I started developing a workshop in that thread and I ended up developing like 3 more in it because I was building them all in that same kind of conversation.
Okay.
Whereas now I don't need that. Now the projects is I can develop them in this, client projects and say, draw back on the belonging workshop that I developed, draw on, these kinds of things. Um, Now it's not perfect. Like you have to continue to check it. You have
Yeah.
to continue to check the data. Um, and, and so like even I'm using it daily right now to apply for jobs. Sometimes it'll write something like, I didn't do that. Like, why do you think I did that? And it will say, well, you did these things. That's this. Or sometimes it'll be like, whoops, I messed up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, And so again, you've got to be able to double check it and see and as you go
Okay.
along.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, this was so fun for me. I hope it was fun for
It was
you.
fun.
Mhm.
It's shocking, surprisingly.
So helpful. Thank you. And I loved everybody else's examples because it gets me out of my head, gives me different examples of what it can do. So thank you very much.
So in closing, what I hope that you're taking away is more confidence to use ChatGPT or any tool that you use. Again, this was mostly about this one tool that I use. I would love your feedback. You can go to engineerinclusion.com/thanks and I'll send that to you. My house is being showed in 30 minutes, so I have to get out of my house right now. Um, uh, but I will follow up with all of these things for you all this afternoon. And again, I'm just so grateful that you came and that you participated. And to each of you, you supported me in so many ways throughout the years, and I'm really grateful for that. And so, if there's anything I can do to further help you in this journey, don't hesitate to ask. And again, like if you take anything away, like the answer probably is yes, ChatGPT can help you. So like give it a try, give it a whirl,
Yes.
and hopefully it will help you continue to build your confidence and build more fun, creative tools as you go along.
Thank you so
You.
much.
Thank
Thank
you.
All right. Bye, y'all. Have a great afternoon, a great
You
weekend.
too.